What's going on, Gifted Hands family? Today we are going to be breaking down some gospel harmony secrets. I'm just going to give you about three advanced modes, advanced scales that you can use in like improvisational context or to just embellish chords, to create movements, whatever you want to do with them. All right, so let's dive into it. Mode number one. So actually, a couple months ago, I think it's been about a month now, we broke down the 7 modes, right? I kind of did an introduction to modes. And so pretty much with what we're going to talk about today is we have modes. Like let's take the Phrygian mode. Here's C Phrygian, right? With this mode, we can do what we could just call alter it. We can alter the mode, meaning I can change one or more of the notes in the mode and I can get an altered mode or like an altered scale, all right? So like I'm gonna take this Phrygian mode, which is really minor, and I'm gonna move the third. Here's a third. Here's a third, and I'm gonna make it major, okay? So that gives me this. All right, and that gives me like a Phrygian, kind of like a Phrygian dominant mode. Chord readout says mixed lydian, flat 2, flat 6, but I like to call it just Phrygian dominant, which is kind of like a mode of your minor scale, of your harmonic minor scale. But yeah, that's what we're gonna be covering today. We're gonna be talking about how we can alter modes to give us essentially new scales and to give us more options when it comes to improv and playing, soloing, improvising over chords or chord progressions, okay? So the first mode that I just played is going to be our Phrygian dominant mode. And so this is a good mode or scale to use over a dominant chord, right? So when it comes to improvisation, we need to understand how chords and scales relate, right? So with this, with the Phrygian dominant scale, we have root, flat 9, 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, right? Those are our notes. So I see for this scale, 1, 3, 5, flat 7. There's a dominant chord built into this scale, right? And then we also have the flat 9, sharp 5, all those. So that tells me that this scale would work over a dominant chord, right? So I can use a Phrygian dominant scale, which we got by just taking the Phrygian mode, the third mode, and taking the third, instead of it being minor, we made it major, okay? All right, so that's our first kind of altered mode that we can use is the Phrygian dominant. Let's jump into the next one. All right, the next mode that we're gonna talk about is kind of like a mix of 2 modes actually. So we can alter modes and we can also mix modes, modal mixture, whatever you wanna call it, right? And so the next mode that we're gonna talk about is gonna be like a Lydian dominant. So what's our Lydian mode? Lydian mode is right here, right? It's pretty much almost the same thing as the major scale. We're just taking the 4th and we're raising it. So it's a sharp 4 or a sharp 11, whatever you wanna call it, okay? So that's our Lydian mode. But what's Lydian dominant, what would that mean? Probably means it's gonna follow like a dominant chord. And a dominant chord has a root, major 3rd, 5th, and a flatted 7th, right? So here's our Lydian dominant. So once again, you can look at it just as altering the Lydian scale, or we can look at it as like altering the Mixolydian scale. So it's like a Mixolydian scale as well with the sharp 11, okay? So we're kind of combining the Lydian and Mixolydian modes together to get this. And once again, let's look at our scale. This has root 2, 3, sharp 11, 5, 6, and flat 7. So once again, this looks like a dominant chord to me, and that's what I use this scale over, is a dominant chord. Okay? So this scale can also be used to improvise over a dominant chord, to create movements over dominant chords. Right? So anytime you hear, like if you hear movements like that, or maybe somebody would do, you might hear somebody, a gospel musician play something like that, right? over a chord. When you hear just intervals being moved up and down over a chord, most of the time you just got to figure out, hey, what scale could I use that's going to match up with this chord that's being played, and then just create some pattern over using the notes of the scale, right? So when I'm playing, stuff like that, I'm picturing and trying to visualize a Lydian dominant scale. And I'm saying, okay, I can use any of these notes in any way to come up with some type of movement, passing, progression, whatever it may be. Cool? That's the second mode. All right, and then our last mode that we're gonna look at today is going to be another altered mode, and it's going to be one of my personal favorites. This mode is really growing on me, man. I'm falling in love with it, right? But it's going to be the Locrian sharp 2. All right, so this is an altered Locrian scale. So here's our regular Locrian. And the Locrian is the 7th mode. So if I'm trying to play C Locrian, I'm gonna do is play like a D flat major scale. So D flat major, starting on C, is the Locrian mode, right? And if you wanna think about it like that, or we can think about it in numbers, it'd be 1, 1, flat 2, flat 3, 4, flat 5, flat 6, flat 7, root, okay? So that's our Locrian mode. And normally the Locrian mode is played over a half diminished chord, right? Half diminished. Why? Because our half diminished chord is root, minor 3rd, minor 5th, or flat 5th, flat 7, right? Root, flat 3, flat 5, flat 7. And our Locrian mode has root, it has a flat 3rd in there, it has a flat 5, it has root, flat 9, flat 3, 4, flat 5, flat 6, flat 7. So it has our notes of our half diminished chords. So that works, right? But I like to alter it and play the Locrian mode with a sharp 2, or really it's like a natural 2. Why? Because now when I play half diminished chords or even fully diminished chords, I like to add in some extensions, right? And the extensions that we can add to a half diminished chord are the 9th and the 11th. Okay? So you can add the 9th and the 11th to a diminished chord or to a half diminished chord, and really a fully diminished too as well. But altering our scale and making it using that sharp 2, it gives me a nice sound, and it aligns if I'm playing an extended, right? An extended half diminished scale. Because the thing is, if I was playing, here's a half diminished extended. If I was playing the regular Locrian mode, I'd have these two notes kind of like clashing against each other, right? That doesn't sound good because the regular Locrian mode has the flat 9, root, flat 9. So it makes more sense to align your scale with your chord. Right? So now the scale, my scale and my chord match up. All right, so that's why we're using that. And then this is also super cool, dope scale, because you can use it on your 7, 3, 6 progression, or like a minor, same thing though, a minor 2, 5, 1 progression. You're gonna use that Locrian sharp 2, or I like to use that Locrian sharp 2 over my half diminished chord, okay? So that is the third kind of altered mode that you can use. And so what you wanna do with all this is really just experiment with the modes after you learn them, experiment with the modes and see how like you can mix and match them, right? And see how you can alter modes to fit your chords, to fit chord progressions, to fit changes, so that you have just scales that align with whatever sound you're looking for, or with whatever chord or progression you're looking for. All right, that's all I got for you today. If y'all got any questions, drop them in the comment section below. If not, I will see you in the very next lesson. Peace out.